You must build a 5-story building. And this is how you get your wealth and power. Now, the first thing you work on is economics. You started practicing group economics, making your money bounce in your own community 8 to 12 times before it leaves. The second floor is politics. Our people got that backwards. They want to get into politics before they get in the economy. Backwards as hell. You won't make it. You buy every politician with the money you made on the first floor. The third floor is your court system, your police system. You control the court system so they won't be getting 40 years in jail for having marijuana. Then the fourth floor is media. You take your money off the first floor and you buy media. Black folk own 35 thousandths of 1% in media. You don't own media, you can't communicate, you can't organize, you can't motivate. The fifth floor is education. Education is a tool, just like a hammer and a saw. But you got to have an economy. See, when a kid graduates from school, the first thing you do, he should be able to go back to his own community and start building businesses and industries and drawing money into his community and hold it.
Good afternoon, good morning, good night, whatever time it is, what time you're watching this. This is Rapping with H-Rap. As usual, this is episode, we're going to call it episode, we're going to still call it episode 1. Each week is one episode. Instead of doing a long form show, I'm going to break everything down into 10 to 15 minute intervals. It is important that we tap into this. I know people are busy. You don't have time to sit here for an hour, but what I will do is give you information every day, Monday through Friday, and then I cut it up on the weekend and ship it out to you. I get more traction when I cut my shows up. Therefore, I will do a cut up version of my show. Thank you for tapping in. Hit that like, hit that share, please, whether you just got in, or whether you're coming in later, or when you come in the midst of the show. Hit that like, hit that share, tell a friend and tell a friend. Take that link, share it with other people. What I'm going to give you is information that I do believe is important. But before I start each show, let me take a deep breath. Calm down. I was moving a little fast. And what I want you to understand is this. The information I'm going to give to you, it is invaluable. Point blank, period. But before I start my show, I want to thank Dolores and John. Those are my parents. Without them, there is no me. Without me, there is no program. And then I wouldn't be in contact with you. So salute to both of my parents. Let's get this on the road. Now, last 8-12 days, we've been dealing with the fallout of the election. You have one Donald J. Trump, and he set up his cabinet. What we have to do is exercise our civic duties and understand our civil rights. How do we stop something of this nature? Because what we have to do is understand. Most of us know the Constitution. We know the words of the Constitution. We know the words of the preamble. Because if you have a general education degree, that's a GED, you more than likely didn't take the Constitution test. But if you have a traditional standardized high school diploma, you pass the Constitution. And this is the difference. I want us to understand intelligence and being smart are two different things. Being smart is being able to pass the test. Absorbing information, regurgitating that information, and then doing away with that information because you don't deem it important. That's smart in the eyes of some people. Intelligence is the practical application of said information so you can move yourself in a better situation. All of us, and if you're of a certain age, used to sing the Constitution every Saturday during this program called Schoolhouse Rock. It did, at one point, we were just like, hey, it's a cool song. And we sang We the People in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice to secure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare. That means that is a contract between you and the United States federal government, and that contract protects your rights. Well, we have been trapped into the psychology of parties. People who are watching this show, hopefully you will unplug yourself from any political party in the United States of America. Neither one of them mean you any good. You have one people that's dragging their feet and getting richer and richer and dragging their feet to progress. Other ones, they're here to choke you out, slam you out, and rule you as if they are kings and queens. Either situation does you no good. Now, the way this contract is set up, you have total autonomy of the way the government is run. You have control the House of Representatives. Every 2 years, those dudes need your backing. Every 2 years. That's why it's always election season. I'm not into politics. You can no longer say that unless you plan on hitting the Powerball or the Mega Million or the state lottery or whatever state you're in. You don't have control over that. Now, if you hit it tonight, then you have a chance. More than likely, you don't. Just for the record, it is a scientific fact. You have a better chance of rolling out your bed, hitting the floor, and breaking your neck than hitting the Powerball. Know that. Back to the point. What we have been duped into believing is this, that if it's a Republican in office and I'm a Democrat, I have no options. Wrong. You do have options. That person is a civil servant. He aligns himself with a thought process on this side or on that side. But at the end of the day, he's there to serve the civilians. Civics is short for civilian. It's not something else. It is short for civilians. The root word is civilian. So if you are a civilian servant and you are one of the civilians, that means no matter what party, left, right, blue, red, donkey, elephant, they're there to do your bidding. But what we do is when we see somebody who's not in our party, we sit back and wait and have things done to us. And then we cry, piss, and moan and do nothing about it and say, hey, they should have, they would have, they could have, I wish. We can no longer do that, folks. We can no longer do that. What I want us to do is, again, I've said this 1,000 times, download the 5 Calls app. The 5 Calls app allows you to get your state representative's phone number, your state senator's phone number, your governor's phone number, your mayor's phone number, and any other public official that you would like. We need those numbers. You know why? Because then and only then, what you can do is this. You can make phone calls. You can organize your friends and family. Most of us are a part of a crew group chat. You and 8 of your friends. I got 3 or 4 of my men, some guys that I'm in high school with. 40 years ago, I met these guys and we're still friends to this day, and we talk about certain things. I know a lot of y'all have those same things. A lot of us going on. You got vacation group chat, family group chats, and guess what? The biggest family holiday in the world is coming up in 2 weeks. We need to organize and get these things pushed through so you can reach out to your state senator, U.S. senator, and your state representative and let them know, if you mess with my Medicaid, if you mess with my Medicare, if you mess with the Affordable Care Act, or if you mess with anything that would affect me in the future, you're going to pay for it. We can no longer sit back with our hands folded and wait for 2 or 4 years. Most of us don't even pay attention to the midterms. Why is it that the affluent people in this country pay attention to every single solitary thing and you don't? It's time to stop that. If you know that Magic Johnson won 3 league MVPs, 2 finals MVPs, led the league in assists and all that stuff, you need to know exactly how the United States federal government works. Otherwise, you will suffer. At one point in your life, you didn't really think about being a senior citizen. But most people, I looked at the statistics before I came on, most of the people that support my program, y'all junior citizens and sophomore citizens. That means you up next for senior citizen. And if they remove those things, if you can't afford medication now, just imagine if you're on a fixed income, if you're going to be able to afford it. We can no longer sit back and say, he's a Republican. I can't deal with him. Yes, you can. He's a Republican he or she is a Republican that represents you. Don't be a single issue voter. Well, I'm sick of the LGBTQIE thing. Well, you know what? Back burner that, because it's not a ton of them. They may be a loud minority at this point, but they are still a minority. They are not even a real group of people, because guess what? When you are a part of LGBTQIE community and you look like this first, and then we'll deal with that other thing later. They discriminating against you when you walk in the door. They don't care what your orientation is, your lifestyle is, or anything of that nature. They look at you and don't like you. Again, 5 Calls app. I need you to download it. And if you're uncomfortable speaking directly to a person, wait till 5 p.m. 5 p.m. whatever time you are, and you wait and you call and say, hi, my name is Brian Williams. I'm a registered voter in Chicago, Illinois. You have your job because I vote. You better not do this. Otherwise, I'm going to organize people and we're going to get it done. If you want your voice to be heard, you can go to all these websites where you can create a digital petition, have all of your friends and family tap into that petition. Guess what? If we can get 200,000 people saying, do not touch the Affordable Care Act, do not bother with our Medicaid and Medicare and other amenities that you've earned and worked your behind off to get at some point in your life, and use that to continue your life, guess what? They have to pay attention. We sit back and wait for things. You are no longer on the defense, you're on the offense. We have met the enemy, we are theirs. That's what time it is. What we're dealing with is white nationalism and white supremacy. White supremacy does not only show up in flags and swastikas and bald head white dudes and tiki torches, it shows up in capitalism. What they do is again, as you saw Dr. Claude Anderson at the top of the show, give you the 5 stages of having to have a secure community. What they do is make 1 or 5 or 50 of us rich and say, hey, that's the carrot you need to chase. But no, we must create, obtain, and keep those businesses in our midst. And if you're unable to keep that business in your family or in your circle, what you do is you go down the block and you incorporate, and then you can hire that young man or young lady who wants to be a CEO or a CFO at one of these big companies, who's going to be discriminated against, and they're not going to get the opportunity. And you can have a communal CFO or CEO, and no, we're not selling. Why? This is one of the major tools of white nationalism, aka white supremacy, to destroy our community. They let you build something up, much like, let's just use some of the bigger things that we know of. Def Jam. Russell Simmons built it, ran it into the ground, built it back up, and then Sony said, you know what? You're worth 38 million, 40 million. Now we'll give you 75 to 90 million dollars for it. Sounds like a profit. It's not a profit though, because do you want 90 million dollars now? Or if you continue to run it the way you're running, you can make $90 million by the end of the year. See, this is how they dupe us. And then they got jackasses in this community. They say, well, it's better to have $90 million in cash. No, it's not. No, it's not. A $90 million asset is something that is immovable, because you can turn that $90 million asset into a $250 million asset, to a $500 million asset, to a $1 billion asset. You ever seen anybody talk about selling NBC, CBS, TNT, TBS, and all these other entities? No, they will not. No, they will not. Nobody's going to sell AT&T. You think Jeff Bezos is going to sell Amazon? No, the hell he's not. No, he's not. He may have somebody step in to be a CEO or CFO or something of that nature, but he will never sell that, because that's money into perpetuity. It is so much money being made, but we see the big numbers. It's the exact same thing they did in the 80s when other communities start moving in and handing our elders bigger checks than they've ever seen in their life. You 65 years old and somebody hand you a $250,000 check, of course you would take it, because you haven't groomed anyone to take on the reins. Guess what? The same thing is happening at Operation Push right now. They haven't groomed anybody to replace Reverend Jackson. The one brother they did from Texas, they ran him out of town because we are not welcoming to change. It's time to change, because things are changing in front of us, around us, behind us, and they're going to squeeze us from the top. It's time to stop accepting things because it's what they tell us is bigger and better. Another great example is our brother, Coach Prime. I'm not here to judge that brother on what he did or when he did it or how he did it. But I want you to understand this. The reason Coach Prime was offered that job is because they don't want you to create roots. See, the beautiful part about a tree, you can see a tree that's 100 feet tall, and that means those roots are 200 feet deep. Trees go in both directions. If Coach Prime stays at Jackson State and builds that program up, they will have to rebuild that stadium, which will automatically put them in Division I status, which will automatically put them on ESPN, which will automatically generate more money for their schools. And then you got people like Joey Porter, Ed Reed, and other guys. They would take over other HBCUs. And guess what? It's the reason they don't fund HBUs anymore, because historically Black colleges and institutions provide, let's say, for example, I'm giving you a few things to just think about. There are just about 500 Black women architects in America. 421 of them come from HBCUs. When you go to an athletic round, one of the best guards in the history of the league, George Gervin, HBCU, Earl Monroe, HBCU, one of the best big men, three of the best big men, Charles Oakley, Willis Reed, Ben Wallace. Oakley's not a Hall of Famer, but he's a legend. The other two are Hall of Famers. Dr. J, excuse me. Dr. J did not come from HBCU. When you look at football, the greatest defensive end ever, Bubba Smith, David Deacon Jones, HBCU. Jerry Rice, greatest receiver, arguably greatest player, HBCU. Michael Strahan, HBCU. Walter Payton, HBCU. Shannon Sharp, HBCU. These guys are prospectively the greatest at their positions. So if we start paying attention to our situations, then guess what? We don't need them anymore. One of the greatest to this very day, one of the greatest businesses in the history of Black America is the Negro Leagues. They were starting to outperform Major League Baseball. So we'll let you in. We start creating entities throughout this country. Guess what? If you're from Chicago, Parker House Sausage. Parker House Sausage is one of the oldest Black-owned companies in the United States of America. But you want to go get Oscar Mayer and everybody else, Louis Rich, no, shop with us, because we have shown ourselves to be tried and true. And that's why Coach Prime gets that job. And guess what? That's why they don't want his ass at Colorado anymore. That's why the Dallas Cowboys are doing bad. They need Coach Prime. No, they don't need Coach Prime. They need to go get a coach. Because, again, if Deion Sanders takes root and he continues to recruit these big-time players, and then he continues to recruit his cohorts from the NFL who wants to be coaches, that is the number one place in America. He would dominate like Nick Saban did. And guess what that means? No more discrimination. Well, you have minimal discrimination or a reduced level of discrimination. And then guess what? It would be a trickle-down effect, and they're scared of us galvanizing and coming together and doing these things. We must stop taking the big money and start thinking about the long money. I speak about investing in investing in stocks, taking your tax money and investing it in the market instead of investing in another television or another car or giving your kids some type of video game. Our children don't need any more toys. What we need to do is use that money to invest for the long run, using things like target IRAs, Roth IRAs, and other things that will benefit us as we put in money today, and 20 years it'll benefit us. And guess what? Unlike a 401k or unlike a pension plan, if you're not married, your children get that Roth. Your children get that traditional IRA, and you can continue to pour into it, and you can even put some in their names. This is what we have to start doing. We can no longer master the art of slavery. We can no longer master the art of depending on someone else to do right by you. And guess what? We can no longer exist in a world of distrust. We can no longer. How in the entire hell can you not trust a brother and you do trust the other and you just keep getting jammed in your backside every time? The banana does no longer fits the tailpipe. We don't want to participate in any more social raping. We don't want to do it. Political raping, we don't want to do it. Financial raping, we no longer want to participate. We no longer want to cry victim, because we have the ability to overcome. As I said yesterday, we no longer have the time to debate with somebody if HRAP is selling us a pipe dream, because all you have to do is the third tenet of today's show: enforce history. Enforce history. Like, for example, a lot of us don't like watching slave movies because that pisses me off. You know what? Anger is the greatest motivator in the history of the world. You could be the biggest coward in the world, and if I slap the hell out of you, you will just get the hell beat out you that day. That motivated me. I'm not going to be dehumanized. And now we see how our ancestors were dehumanized. You think you from Mississippi. You think you from Alabama. You think you from Georgia. But a lot of us was forced out of South Carolina because up into those land grants in the early 20, and about 100 years ago, between the 20s and the 40s, 1920 to 1940, when those land grants were handed out and forced us out, they forced us to Mississippi. They were killing us 3,700 a year. That's like 2 or 3 people a month. This is what I want you to understand. You need to understand that pain, understand that strife. And as I said on my promo, we must reinvest in a plan, in a sharecropper's mentality. A person who's sharecropping understands, I'm gonna get the short end of the stick, but I'm gonna plant this tree today, knowing I may not sit up under it to get the shade, but my grandson will, my great-grandson's grandson will, you know, kind of like Rockefeller did when he took over the education system. Just like when he, guess what? You know, like when he put his wife's name on Spelman, or Howard. That's a white man at Howard University. Those are not black people's name on it, but guess what it is? Morris Brown is a black man because he's from the AME church, a group of brothers and sisters that got together and said enough. See, we must understand our history. If we understand our history, we won't think Dylann Roof just showed up at that church that day and shot that church up. That was the 100-year, that was a 200-year anniversary of a man by the name of Denmark Vesey, who created the largest enslavement revolt in the history of the United States of America. And they were about to set it off, and somebody snitched on them. 3,700 people were about to do their thing. But we don't know these things. We don't think about these things. We don't embrace these things because we try to hide these things from our children, because it's our natural inclination as parents to protect our children from harm, dismay, trauma, and other things. But you know what? It ain't trauma if you introduce it to them and use it as motivation. See, when you're my age, the fight is gone. I can talk, I can direct, I can guide, I can advise. I talk to my nephews, I talk to my younger cousins, I talk to my son, I talk to my daughter on a regular basis. I talk to everybody who will listen. That's why I do this. But we can no longer sit around and say, oh man, it's too much, that's too heavy, I can't deal with that. Because if you don't deal with it, it'll be dealt with you. That's about all I got to say today. Every Monday through Friday, you're going to see me on here for 15 to 20 minutes, 2 fingers, 1 word. This your man H-Rap. Y'all already know what's next.
So really, ain't nothing in this integration. I need some land. I need some jobs. My people need jobs. We need something so we can build and do for ourselves, and we must have some land. Now, what's your suggestion? What should be my movement? Integrate?
Yeah, equal rights in a mixed society.
In this society, where you still own the government, you still own the train station, the railroad plant, the lecture plant, these television cameras, you still make all the food, you control everything, and I'm like a leech on a dog's back. All I can do is just wait for you. I can't do nothing for myself. Integrating in your society don't mean I'm doing nothing for myself. You doing it all. I want to do something for myself. I'm tired of depending on you. You might get broke one day. Your stores might close. Your gas pumps might cut off again. I'm relying on you now. Can I have my own land?